Welcome to Good Boys Gone Bland, Season 8, Episode 1, Dude, Where's My Car? I'm your co-host, Denali.
I'm your co-host, Ryan.
Dude, I'm your co-host, Jace.
And welcome, folks, to our brand spanking new season, fresh off the factory lot. Is that what they say? Is that factory lot, or is it?
Are you inviting me to do more Asmer?
Do you know what it is, Jace?
Yeah.
Sounds like you don't.
We talked about doing an Asmer season or like an Asmer podcast to kind of boost viewership for the new season. Do you guys want to just take a run at Asmer?
Yeah, he wanted a factory.
Yeah.
Factory, and it's also weird to me that you're saying Asmer. I always thought it was read ASMR.
Is it not?
Yeah,
Asmer?
it took me a second to realize what you were saying.
Yeah, no one has time to say ASMR. Asmer at the Asmer community, the Asmerians. That's how they pronounce it.
Actually, I think Asmer is functionally almost the same as ASMR.
Okay, well let's each of us do a little ASMR, stick a little toe in the water, and see.
This
if
is going to be
right
terrible to listen to.
Okay, I know.
You understand that.
We can edit it out if it doesn't sound good, and if our fans don't like it, they can just skip ahead 2 minutes.
I'm worried that they're gonna do other things.
Okay.
Yeah, exit out.
I'm gonna do one Asmer, okay?
Okay.
All right. What do you guys think of that? Did you guys get any Meridian response out of that?
No, I don't know what you were
doing. I also
doing.
don't know what the Meridian response is.
The Meridian response is the MR in Asmer, and I believe...
It's the spine tingles.
I believe it's an orgasm.
No, it's not. No.
You Google Meridian right now.
No.
Response.
That's not what it is. It's the spine tingles up your back.
Oh, buddy, it's a low grade orgasm. I think it says in the medical
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. None of you guys Meridian. Ryan, do you want to try? Do you want to try to make me Meridian?
Yeah, sure. We bought an aquarium this weekend for like plants. We're just gonna do like a vivarium thing, and so I had to plant my plants in the gravel. I can make that sound.
Okay, please. Yeah. I couldn't hear most of it. I think Discord mercifully filtered most of that.
That's how you know it's good ASMR.
Okay,
because yours was too loud.
Discord. Yeah. So in post, I'm gonna hear that when I'm editing. So I will DM you, Ryan, if I did Meridian when you did that. Okay.
Yeah. LMK.
And I did see here on the wiki ASMR. It's very hotly debated if it means an orgasm. Okay. I want to say that.
Okay. It's GBGBs canon that it does not.
Oh, jeez. That's actually.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad. That's not bad, Jace.
Zipper.
Yeah, folks, let us know what you think about that. And if you want more of that.
Because that did it for me.
God. So on that note, we are starting out a new season. Ryan, you won our last State of the Podcast. I don't want to say win because it sounds like we're against each other.
I want to say win because I won the last two.
And what was your subject, Ryan, that you pitched?
Yeah. So I didn't come with a speech prepared, but
it is episode 1 of a new season. Somebody might see this.
Yes.
I know we normally get 20 minutes in before we introduce what we do, but
no, we should do that. Yeah,
we should cover that first.
Right. Oh, there we go. How about before we start just breathing into the microphone? But
yeah, edit and post. We'll put this at the beginning so that people won't Meridian before they hear this. So, Ryan, explain the show, Ryan.
We're a marathon podcast. If you didn't know, we watched 10 is kind of an arbitrary number, but we watched 10 movies of a theme or actor and see if they go bland. And kind of the point is to distill a common theme among, for instance, when we did Ben Affleck. What do you think of when you think of a Ben Affleck vehicle?
Big chin.
Well, right. How big are the chins?
Huge.
Is there another chin that's the exact opposite shape that his chin could fit into?
Aaron Eckhart.
Things like that. So, we just came off of disaster movies. So we watched 10 movies that were debatably disaster movies. Some scored low, and because they weren't really. And some scored 10s out of 10s because they were full-fledged, balls to the wall disaster movies. This season, we're watching, believe it or not, this is not a prank. We are actually going to do this.
Yes.
We're going to watch 10 Seann William Scott movies in 10 weeks. And I know some people might be like, who is this guy?
Don't touch that dial.
Yeah, put that remote down. You know him. Let's make this very clear. You know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
You might not yet be a Seann William Scott fan, but he's kind of the number 2 guy in a lot of movies. And this movie, Dude, Where's My Car? He plays, not opposite, but he plays next to Ashton Kutcher for the entire film. He gets a lot of screen time. Another common one that you guys might have seen is Role Models.
Role Models.
He plays alongside Paul Rudd. And yeah, I don't know. He's kind of like, not really like edgy, but he's kind of like the bad boy of the group most of the time.
Yeah, I would say his most famous movie is probably American Pie. That I think that's like his most iconic role. We'll get to if we even want to see that, but we could. But that's his most iconic role is as Stifler. But if you Google this dude, you will and you see his face, you will know who this is.
Yeah. And every time you watch a movie and he's in it, you're like, oh yeah, I like this guy.
So he has a very specific flavor. I kind of wanted to go over with you guys, like, who is Seann William Scott to you? Like, how, like, if you had to picture him in your head, like, what's the vibe that he's giving off?
Maybe like a little bit of a weird haircut mixed with a joke from the 90s or the early 2000s. Actually, you know what? His taste, he's actually the distillate of the early 2000s comedy era for me.
He really is for me too, Jace, because he was ubiquitous from like 99 to like 2010. Like he was in every fucking teen comedy, I feel, running up to that point. I feel like his energy is also manic. He's usually not in these chill roles. He's got these huge eyes, these crazy eyebrows, and he's always like yelling something. His performances are kind of big, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
For me, it's a little different. I think he's kind of more of like, not really like the bad boy, but he's the cool one of the group usually, right? Like he's the guy with the witty responses. He's the guy who's sometimes too cool for school. And he's got this like funny smirk he does in a lot of his promotional materials that I know they are like, hey, do the smirk again. And he's like, no, I don't really want to do it. And like, just give us one. And then that's the one they end up using. Like he plays Goon in the hockey movie. So he's kind of like a tough guy, you know? So I think he's not like your typical pretty boy. He's a good looking dude.
Yeah, I'm looking at all these covers and I'm seeing the smirk across like 6 of them in a row as you said that. But yeah, he has a little bit of like a dangerous energy about him, something that's like a little unpredictable, which I think people like recognize and play off of in these roles. He's the kind of guy when like something awesome happens, you kind of want the camera to pan to him and see how he'll react. Or where he's like, dude, that's crazy. Like he'll do something that's kind of entertaining to watch. Oh my God. Jeez, that thing. I was like, what the fuck is that?
Sorry, for those not watching, I have a green screen with a picture from this movie up, and I'm figuring
your
Seann
hand
William
is so
Scott's mouth.
detached in the green screen that it actually scared me. This kind of brings up the question now that we've like established who Seann William Scott is. Yeah, I would recommend people to look him up and see what movies he's in because he's probably seen Jace down in front.
I've got a comment.
Yeah.
To me, especially starting with this movie, he does seem like he's gonna have the vibe that generally turns us off in a lot of movies now when we talk. Like I said, he's the distillate of early 2000s comedy.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we don't get a lot of yucks because of it. And it would be it feels like it would be pretty, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Ryan pitched somebody that gave us a lot of yucks for weird comment, it would make total sense.
I feel like this could be challenging. We're gonna see a lot of challenging content this season because of the era. I think is what.
Yeah, and I want to make this clear too. I want to take an honest stab at these things and see like what's redeemable about these projects, what's irredeemable, and how have they aged? Because some of the jokes, let's face it, especially when American Pie comes around, some of the like literal plot points didn't. I don't want to say it didn't age well, but were not good ideas.
Yeah. Like this season in particular is interesting because the three of us, we kind of grew up in this era. Like we watched all these dang movies when we were teens. So I think we're in a unique position to kind of address them. And a lot of these we haven't seen in a long time. I know this one especially is a cult classic, which we'll get into in a moment. But I think it's worth analyzing, picking out things that we think are, maybe fun or funny. Of course, celebrating our boy Seann, but of course, we're going to address some shit that we're going to see. There's no way we can't. So, be prepared for those discussions too. That's unfortunately, that's what we do. You've heard other episodes where we do this, but like Ryan, you said this in State of the Podcast, but why specifically Seann William Scott? Like, what is your motivating factor for someone like this?
I think the question answers itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
why him? That's
Yeah.
the whole point. I want to do something that other people aren't doing. And I mean, I don't mean that as a slight on him, but that's kind of the whole point of the podcast. Like, we have people like Ben Affleck who were, if you were thinking of the most famous person kind of related to Ben Affleck that you could watch 10 movies of, you probably would pick Matt Damon instead. but Ben Affleck is just funny enough to where 3 years ago we were like, that's actually a funny idea. If we watched 10 Ben Affleck movies, who would do that? And then, Matthew McConaughey is kind of a meme. We did that. Like, Keanu Reeves was, I think, a little bit like right down the middle, a little bit too much.
A little meme. Well, he's pretty popular though.
Yeah, he's a little too popular. So I think Seann William Scott as a topic hits all those points. Number one, it's going to be a lot of comedies. And I think that's going to be a nice reprieve from last season. And also, he's off the mainstream. He's not an A-lister you put front and center on your movie poster if you want to make $1 billion. And I think maybe that's a disservice. We're going to find out. We've got 10 episodes. Are we going to become bored of him? Does he truly have a style? Is that why we don't know more of him? And that's one thing I thought about Ben Affleck too when we first started this whole idea. It was like, I kind of get the picture of Ben Affleck movies. I like Gone Girl. He's kind of serious. He's Batman. But then we get some weird stuff. When you hit like 9, 10, it can be hard to find content.
But I think Seann William Scott is one Marvel movie away from his first $1 billion, because I feel like he could play in that space of like a Marvel comedy action type of thing.
I have a question. This is something I've been thinking about this week. What's your dream Seann William Scott cast?
Oh,
Meaning,
man.
Place him in a different movie that he's not in. And who's he replacing?
Henry Cavill Superman.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
What? Sorry.
Henry Cavill Superman. I want to see him as Superman.
That's, I mean.
He's like, I'm trying to think about, what's Seann William Scott? He's like, hey, Zod. Hey, Zod. Screw you.
More eyebrow. More eyebrow.
More eyebrow. Okay, more eyebrow.
Yeah, give him more eyebrow.
I'm gonna make it sound like he has more eyebrows. Hey, Zod. Hey, Zod. This is bad. Anyone else?
Yeah, superhero adjacent.
Okay.
I thought he would be great as Venom in Spider-Man 3.
Oh.
Replace Topher Grace
Eddie
as
Brock.
Venom.
He kind of has the bully vibe. I think he
Yeah,
could play
right?
that
He can
well.
pull off a good bully.
And then
Which
kind of
is
have that chaotic comedian.
Weird, because I don't think he ever really plays the bully. He has a chaotic energy, but I feel like he's always the butt of the joke or at the bottom of the hill getting shit rolled
like
on him.
I think
Stifler was a bully. He did like prank nerdier characters.
To be clear, and we could make this clear, I have not watched American Pie front to back ever. So like,
oh no, I don't want to be the expert for that. No,
Yeah, you're gonna be too bad, man.
No. So for this season, we always do this. Can we think of a name? Do you guys have any name ideas for Seann William Scott?
I thought about it all week.
I have
I've
a
come
couple,
up empty.
Like, I don't know. Like, can I pitch like a couple that I had?
Sure. It's also is his name a two-parter? Like is his first name Seann William?
I think
Or
William
is it his
Scott
middle
was
name?
his name, right? Or what? I feel like we should do Sean because we can't do Scott because I feel like that's going to be confusing. And then William Scott, it's impossible to create an alliteration for.
his other names is Sean W. Period Scott. I think William is his middle name.
Okay. I mean, I had the Seann Shack or this is challenging, Shelf of Sean. Those are the two that I had.
I think Seann Shack. It's hard to say, especially with my slight lisp. Seann Shack. So it sounds like I'm saying Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, it's
Seann Shack Redemption.
The Seann Shack Redemption.
Dude, we can give him. This is his redemption. Like we had the McConaissance.
Yes.
And the Benaissance. We'll have the Seann Shank Redemption. Wait, I said Shank. Seann
Shack Redemption.
Oof.
Okay.
Seann Shack Redemption.
So I like this, Ryan. This is going to be hard to fit into our episode titles because I don't think they're going to see the movie. Okay, I like Seann Shack if you guys are okay with it.
Yeah.
Unless you guys have other pitches you want to throw at me right now.
Only thing I could think of, but we've already done an attic, is the Seann William Scattic, but that sounds like poop.
The place where he shits himself. That's pretty good too. The other menu item briefly is we could call it Just the Sean meter, the Seanometer, or the Sean gauge, whatever you guys like. What are you guys thinking? Seanometer.
Seanometer's good.
Okay, so we have the Seanometer. We've got the Seann Shack. Predictions for the season. How do you guys think this is going to go? We talked a little bit about this. Like, how do you guys think this is going to play out? Because, like,
we might be stressed for variety.
Yeah, variety is. I'm thinking
we might achieve total blandness.
I think we will, dude. Like,
he
gets typecast.
4 movies in his most recent 4 all look wildly different. So I do think we're gonna get some variety, but the hallway, so to speak, is narrow. Short. There aren't many doors on either side. You get the metaphor.
There's different. There's different rooms.
Right.
But he's the same role in each room.
Yeah, like each one of the smoothies has banana in it,
Yes.
but like, one has some mango in it.
Yeah, but it's still a banana smoothie.
Yeah, and you're like, do I want another banana right now? Maybe. And we'll see, because he does have a specific flavor. He did try to break out of the typecast a little bit kind of later in his career, trying to branch out. I would even say maybe even Goon was like a little bit of a branch out for him. So, I mean, we'll see if we're gonna get tired of it. I do feel like if we watch a bunch of teen comedies in a row, I think after about like the third or the fourth one, I'm gonna be begging for mercy. Alrighty, fellas. Should we get into starting to talk about this movie? The first movie of our Seann William Scott season, our Seann Shack redemption, if you will. Dude, where's my car? Ryan, this was your pick.
It very much was my pick. I gotta say, I'm happy we started off with this movie because it was the impetus for me picking him. I watched this movie as a kid, did not understand a single joke in the thing. Might as well have had the sound off. But I remember my cousins like laughing their asses off and thinking like, I can't wait till I'm a cool teenager and I can understand these jokes. And then I didn't watch it until 2020, early in the pandemic, very early, like March. I was like, wow, this movie is terrible. Like, it's not like a well-crafted comedic masterpiece where you're like boom, boom, boom on top of it. And so I wanted to revisit it with you guys because I have some very strong thoughts, mostly positive, but I want to say that. But like, yeah, so Dude, Where's My Car is a 2000 PG-13 movie starring Seann William Scott as Chester and Ashton Kutcher as Jesse. And the plot, I will read the entirety of the plot description as provided by IMDb. 2 potheads wake up after a night of partying and can't remember where they parked the car.
Oh, that's it. Okay, yeah, cool. No, that does sum it up.
There's nothing else to say.
That's the movie.
Ryan, you did mention you had kind of seen it as a child. Jace, have you seen this movie before? Or is this the first time?
I've seen this before, but another one of those maybe half on TV, I feel like a tune in late. Because I remember the German dude, but like as a joke. I remember seeing that joke play out and then nothing else.
That's interesting because I remember this being on TV a lot. I remember even Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon making a big deal about syndicating it to their channel, like heavily edited, which I don't even know how that turned out. But I have never seen a single frame of this movie. I've heard it talked about a lot growing up. I know it was very influential. I know people like quoted it around me a lot. I know it was somewhat successful when it came out too, even though it wasn't critically, right? Like it had a cultural impact and made some money.
73 million.
Yeah, and
on a budget of 13.
That's actually a pretty fucking good return. It came out December 15th of 2000. Opened number 2 that weekend. Did you guys see what was number 1 that weekend? Can you take a guess?
I was waiting for this too because I almost got too deep in like the trivia and stuff, and then I was like, oh, now he's probably going to ask me something. So
yeah, let's think about 2000 in the cultural zeitgeist. It's a certain Mel Gibson movie that came out on December 15th, 2000.
So they put it heavy in like awards season?
I guess so. I think Dude, Where's My Car was eligible. And I heard Seann William Scott did mention he thought this movie would win an Oscar when he was making it. He said like in an interview in 2019.
Well, they had an Oscar. I saw they had an Oscar campaign for it.
That's hilarious. I love that.
So they like sent letters, something that said, "Dude, where's my Oscar?"
That's amazing.
That's smart.
Do you guys want another hint, or do you want to guess?
So Mel Gibson.
I know what it is. So it's
in 2000.
Right.
Is it a rom-com?
Yes.
It's What Women Want.
It's What Women Want. How do you fucking know that? Jesus, man. I've never even heard of this movie. It's where Mel Gibson hears women's thoughts.
Yeah.
That was number one in America. Jason, you knew this? Did you know this movie?
I know what the movie is. I just
I haven't
read
seen
that
it.
on.
Oh, okay. You also read it. It beat out another new release this weekend. This one actually makes me a little sad. It's a Disney movie. It opened at number 4 that weekend. It's an animated comedy. It only made $9 million.
Animated comedy of a TV show from Nickelodeon?
It was a Disney
show?
movie. Disney movie that became a show later. It was one of the worst openings for it. It wasn't Xenon. This is an animated movie. It was one of the worst openings for like a tentpole release for Disney.
Oh, like
there's a lot of memes about it.
Yeah, is it something like Atlantis or
You're close.
one of those?
You're very close.
Treasure Planet?
It's not Treasure Planet. I love that
that's
movie.
that's
though.
too
Man,
big.
I
Okay,
fucking love
but
Treasure
it's
Planet.
something like that. So is it like Road to El Dorado?
You're extremely close. It's excruciating.
It's not Emperor's New Groove because that was a hit.
It's Emperor's New Groove.
What?
Wow.
It's Emperor's New Groove.
Wait,
Opened
what?
number 4 that weekend. Box
I
office.
thought that was a hit.
Disappointment. Yeah, I thought so too because we loved it so much when it came out, but it actually did not do good when it came out.
What?
And
This
movie beat
beat Emperor's New Groove?
it beat out a big Disney release.
Well, chalk up a victory for Seann William Scott then. One in the W column.
Sean was coming for that Emperor slot. Yeah, this movie kind of made a big cultural splash when it hit. But I was like reading some of like the critic reviews. Like BBC Films called it, quote, a lame-brained travesty, intensely irritating and painfully unamusing.
Because they're watching it in real time. Like they're watching it when it comes out. Watching it 20 years later, you can be like, okay, I don't have to like this. Like if I don't like it, I can just go watch something else. But like watching it when it comes out, you're like, oh, this new movie, it's going to be awesome. Everybody's going to be talking about it. If it underwhelms, then that's the whole point about cult films is they're fun. They're more fun to watch after they're already out. And there's a lot of movies like that where I would say, yeah, you can write it terribly when it comes out, but then looking back, this movie has some great jokes.
That's funny you should mention that too, like the difference of looking back at it nostalgically as like a cultural like point. I just wanted to read the other review which was any civilization that can produce a movie this stupid probably deserves to be hit by famine and pestilence from USA Today.
Oh my God.
They should see where we're at in 2022.
Yeah, bingo. Congratulations, USA Today. Or 23, I guess. 'Cause that's a new year now.
God. Oh,
3 months in,
it's like
Jace, come on,
March.
man.
It's March.
To get into the premise of this movie, like I wasn't familiar with it.
You weren't. It's in the title.
It's in the title, but like
It's
I didn't know like
descriptive.
what it was gonna be
like
like
Interstellar.
actually about. Yeah. Because it kind of unfolds in like a hangover like movie, right?
Yeah. So I would say my biggest complaint, but also my biggest compliment is it's sort of Bill and Ted meets Hangover.
Yeah. I kind of wrote that in my notes too.
It does aspects of both of those movies better than both of those movies, but it's not like a super original concept.
No, I think they're building off of the stoner duo. Ashton and Seann are kind of doing that. It's a little overacting. They're kind of being like, whoa, like they kind of do the big facial expressions and kind of nodding and being total slackers. But this is like Bill and Ted if you just subtract like 70 IQ points. They are
Right.
so insanely dumb in this movie that it was hard to get over at first. I was like, am I watching like a Nickelodeon comedy right now?
Right. But like everybody's in on it. And this is my biggest compliment and my biggest takeaway. And as soon as I remembered this watching this movie, I was instantly bought into the premise and let's be very clear. I had an amazing time watching this movie. I laughed my ass off because there's no straight characters, meaning like there's no characters who act like they're in the real world. Every character in this movie is zany or like 100% bought into the premise. Like, and the premise is not like this takes place in our real world. If you're a stoner, you're 100% a stoner. You're not like a stoner and a normal dude. If you're a jock, you're 100% a jock.
Right.
And if you're like a dude from outer space, you're not going to understand human society because you're 100% that thing.
Yeah, it kind of plays into those archetypes, and that's what reminded me of like a Disney or Nickelodeon movie where they're just really
Absolutely.
playing up the silliness of that.
It reminds me of like Buying In, right? Where it looks really stupid. Imagine you're one of those actors and you're like, I'm supposed to say what? in in what type of accent? It's like, yeah, but that's like the joke. Like, you have to buy in. Everybody else is going to buy in. You're not going to be the only one looking stupid on camera. And that's what I liked. It seems like every single person bought into the idea that this is just going to be, everybody's going to be dumb.
These two actors really committed. I will say the acting in this movie is absolutely atrocious.
It's the worst thing. It's the worst
thing I've ever seen. But there was a lot of gags that like I laughed out loud at. The whole like gene thing that never comes up again, where he comes out of the closet, pisses in a plant, and is like, any messages, and just goes back in.
And they're like, see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he always does.
And then like the whole pizzas thing where he throws the pizza on the ceiling and he's like waiting for it to come down and keeps distracting the guy from to turn around. And I was like, this is like, it's so gleefully stupid. Like, I wasn't bought in most of the humor until that moment where I was like, okay, I kind of get where they're going with this. Very slapsticky.
And there's sound effects.
Right, the sound effects, like with the cat screeching, and I was like, what is this movie? I think the biggest laugh for me was the guys getting hit by both the cars. Smashing.
That's so funny.
For me, where he's like, hey, and he gets hit again. That was actually like an unpredictable joke, which I thought was very good in this movie.
My favorite joke in the whole movie is the random people who get title cards.
Oh, yeah. Like, Jeff.
They'll stop the movie in the middle of the movie to give like a completely unnecessary character a title card when only like 4 people in the entire movie get one. And then the characters refer to him by his first name for the rest of the movie. So the four people who get it, right? So there's the twins, but then there's Chester, who's Seann William Scott, Jesse, who's Ashton Kutcher, Jeff, and then they get the chimp.
The chimp. Oh, right. And the
on
chimp
the TV,
for no reason.
on the nature documentary in the very beginning of the movie, and you're like, oh, is there gonna be a chimp in this movie? That's like a main character? And no, never referenced again until the literal climax of the movie, and the chimp gives them the idea of how to stop the world from being destroyed.
The running joke of the Animal Planet thing, and like this idiot who doesn't know anything but has ingrained knowledge of Animal Planet from watching it absolutely stoned out of their mind that was one of the best jokes for me, to be like caught in the cage, like, how fast can an adult ostrich run?
That was so good. And do you guys recognize the ostrich handler in that scene, the French one?
No.
That's
Data.
It's Data, Brent Spiner from the
What?
movie we just watched, the Star Trek First Contact. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I really liked that character because once again, he 100% bought in. He was like 100% crazy ostrich keeper, hostage keeper person. And then he was like 100% trivia nerd.
Right.
And then after that, boom. If you're friends with them, you're best friends with them in this movie. Then he was like willing to do whatever they wanted to help him.
Jace, were you going to talk about what his...
Yeah, he asked for his name to be removed from the credits because he was so disappointed in it. And then later, I think in the late 2010s, was like, I kind of regret asking to have my name removed from that. It wasn't too bad.
It was a funny role. But there was like a lot of cameos too. You also had Michael Bolton from Office Space show up as the guy with a weed smoking dog.
Yeah. Fabio.
We
can talk about that scene. That's going to be a whole extended discussion, but...
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of humor in here that somewhat worked for me, but obviously there was a lot that really, really, really didn't. I'll be real, I was oofing a lot this movie. Mm-hmm. I didn't enjoy like huge portions of it. The main thing, and I don't want to like be a bummer and belabor this for like super long, but the main thing for me was kind of the and then scene. Because for me, like growing up, not seeing this movie, I had that scene and people giving their hilarious Asian impressions to me and my mom my whole fucking life. And then doing impressions of my mom's voice, of my voice, and trying to do this whole scene. I know, but I am half Asian, so like that's got to be something that someone has to do when they see me. So when I saw that it was in this movie, I was like, oh my God, this is what it was from.
it was an aha moment?
Yeah, I didn't know the and then thing was from this movie. Even though Ashton was giving like a pretty comedic performance, it just felt like a car full of white guys reacting to like the outrageous antics of a Chinese person. And, you know, you can talk all you want about intentions, but like the messaging there was just, it gave me a big ick there. And I was like, oh no. You know, that was kind of the start of the movie of where I was finding more and more things to not like about it. Every female character in this movie is just a sex object, which is just like, okay, all right,
Well,
like we're doing
okay,
this.
so
and then,
we can go on there because, like, I think it's interesting for you to bring that up because that's the one thing where that was also the worst thing for me too, but I can't identify with it, right? So I think the other things too, it's going to be hard for us to identify with like, you know, the
right.
the objectification of women, the not so great aging of the way they handle gay rights and transgender rights.
Yikes.
And
yeah.
yeah. And then the sex jokes are just way different.
And we talk about this in a previous episode. The popular consensus at this time was that it was like a post-racial society. It was like a post kind of like post-bigotry society. It's like, okay, we can laugh at our differences now. You know, and they didn't really realize the consequences of doing that. And this was kind of peak shock humor, and we're just going to do the craziest, raunchiest things, and everything's going to be really sexual. And like, you know, it was kind of like the post-American Pie arms race of seeing who can get the most like ridiculous thing on the screen. And I don't think we saw correction, you know, until like really recently, until probably 2016. Let's be real. Yeah. So I mean, obviously we're gonna run into that with other movies this season, but you know, it does affect my viewing of this movie though. Like watching it makes up a huge like portion time wise. Like I would say half this movie is stuff like that where I was just like, okay, like can we please just fucking get through this?
Yeah, it's not like a guilt-free watch.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Wet Hot American Summer, there's not very similar, but there's a similar plot line. And the joke is that some people are homophobic and they're idiots. But also like don't expect some people to be homophobic, you know? So yeah, I do kind of it wasn't guilt-free, but at the same time I don't feel bad for watching it.
Yeah, it's interesting to like look at comedies as like a perfect cross-section of our cultural moment too.
Yeah.
Especially like classic comedies. Like I remember I forgot a friend's dad recommended me Caddyshack or something, or like, you know, those movies from like the 70s or even Animal House. And they're like, "Oh, it's so awesome." And you watch it and you're like, "What the fuck, bro?" Like like, you know, but it really like if you ever want to like if you've ever been deluded in like how we've advanced in a society or like what perceptions were or what was normalized throughout history, it's like you watch like a comedy where it's like boom, mask off, like this is what people laughed at. It's like, oh, like that's what it was like. And you watch a comedy today and compare sensibilities. I think it's interesting. But yeah, this this movie had a lot of moments like that. I just want to say like another joke I really liked was the dummy in the police custody scene.
And what stood out about that joke was it did not need to be in this movie. It made no sense. It had nothing to do with the rest of the movie, and it could have been in any movie. Like it's a hilarious bit. I really like, and it was obvious what was going to happen. It's like the cops know they can't beat up the people they're interrogating, so they beat up a dummy instead because the cops are just bloodthirsty torturers.
And they just start beating the shit out of the dummy, and then they start breaking. They're like, "Hey, leave him alone!" That was really funny. And like my favorite part of that is when the cop like takes some hot coffee and then intentionally burns his lip dramatically to show it's hot, and then pours it on the dummy.
He's just selling it.
That was one of the stupidest and funniest scenes.
And when he punches the dummy and its head spins like halfway and he twists it around straight again, like every time.
Yeah, so I mean like there's so much in this movie that is actually like pretty fucking funny. And we talk about this with other comedies. It's like if we can take elements of this humor and just maybe like redo it and apply more like advanced sensibilities to it, like this would be like a fucking amazing comedy. I mean, this thing got like a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes. Nobody was liking this shit in the highbrow crowd.
I think once again, it's like we're not watching it when it came out. Like we don't have to worry about be like, "Hey, did you see Dude, Where's My Car?" And be like, "Yeah, I loved it." And be like, "What? How could you like that?" That's not like we're not running that risk in our daily lives.
Right. And I feel like because it's such a classic and because the age most people watch this movie, if you mention it, I feel like most people would be like, oh, I love that movie. Oh my God, like it's so good. And I got that with other movies we watched previously. I got that with Old Yeller a lot, was when I would talk to people about that movie
Yeah.
and they're like, oh my God, so good. And they would talk about like how it made them cry. And then we watched it and we thought it was dog shit, pardon the pun. I feel like that applies to movies like this where it's like, dude, where's my car? You don't remember some of these bad stuff, but you remember the time and place you were at and the memories. And you see those guys' two dumb faces and you just, it gives you good feelings.
Is this genre dead?
Yeah,
Like,
I thought that's where Denali was gonna go.
What's name? You said a comment in there. You think
Yeah.
you could redo some of the sensibilities for, and I'm not. Let's make clear. I'm not trying to make a comment that like, oh, everybody's too sensitive nowadays. Name one movie that in the actual last 6 or 7 years that produces that its goal is to produce comedy like this. I can't think of one.
I can't.
I think it's dead.
So like it would have to be like a teen comedy, right? Or like coming of age. Well, not really coming of age, right? It's kind of like two stoners. But yeah, it's not like super bad if that's like kind of like what we're kind of thinking of.
Something like, I mean, think about Andy Samberg. He had a couple. Hot Rod reminds me of this a lot, where everybody buys in. But then a more sophisticated version is like Palm Springs. But those were too good. Like those are like, Palm Springs especially is, they're not idiots running around. They're sophisticated characters living in the normal world. So I agree with Jace. I think it might. I'm looking through my letterbox sorting by release date, and I can't find any that I've seen.
And I guess my thought is that we've really moved on from the pure shock humor, 90 minutes of smashed jokes into every movie as fast as we can, because it seems like it doesn't sell well, and maybe that's moved into TV now, because like this movie,
oh, that's interesting.
Maybe reminds me more of like a Rick and Morty. In a quick 30, you can bust through 40 jokes and you can act stupid and then it's done. Whereas, this movie, you have to sink 13 million in, like, oh, this movie made a lot of money, but movies, you got to sink 13, 20, 35 million in it to bring in somebody.
That's interesting too, because I feel like there's a lot of like sex comedies and like coming of age, ridiculous comedies coming on a TV and streaming, especially right now too. But it's really not the same. The whole kind of like, oh, bro, you're about to graduate, you gotta get laid. Like I feel like stuff like that whole genre. I feel like we've kind of got burnt out on that, and then
I think
maybe our
Superbad
sensibilities
was responsible kind of for killing it.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Nice Guys, directed by Shane Black, starring Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe? It's kind of a similar thing, like two male leads bumbling through some sort of misadventure. It's obviously supposed to be a little more high budget, more polished. There's action and drama in it, but it's kind of the same sort of vibe. It's supposed to be for laughs. So that was the last one I found that I've seen that could maybe fit. And I mean, that was 2016.
I can't think of one that isn't also like an action.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all superhero. There might be a different version of like the Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland that are like a little bit more slapsticky.
Like I feel like our comedies kind of shifted away from like a pure comedic model to kind of doing hybrids. A lot of my favorite comedies that came out recently are kind of just like they're also commentaries, and they also have these other stuff going on. Like we saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is marketed as like a comedy movie, but it's not like this, man. Like but yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing. Maybe we can make a pure comedy if it would get funded. And I don't even think like it's a problem. Like, I mean, a lot of shitty boomer comedians nowadays are like, oh, that could be never be made nowadays because people are too fucking
No,
woke
I totally
blah, blah,
disagree with that whole idea. That whole idea is incorrect.
Stupid. Yeah, they're fucking old idiots. I do think a really funny comedy can be made today. And you just don't be a fucking bigot in the comedy. Like,
yeah,
it's
so
not
that's the difference, right? It's like people say everybody's so sensitive nowadays. No, people are not letting like white men make whatever jokes they want anymore. In fact, like you can make more jokes than ever now. It's just the subject has finally changed. Like imagine
I can't say slurs anymore. What the
right,
fuck?
and think about like let's think about dress code standards.
Yeah.
The first on-screen kiss between two, people who were not the same race. Oh no. Like that's what they're talking about. Like, oh, you can't say anything anymore. We just need to go back to the when movies were awesome, when only white people could kiss each other.
Yeah.
Like, no, people are less sensitive now. Just nobody likes your jokes.
Yeah. And that comes to like what I was reading about, and Jace, you probably saw this on the trivia too. They did have a sequel movie shelved, and that both Ashton and Seann are up for making. And
they need to come back. That would be so funny.
Yeah, it's called Seriously, Dude, Where's My Car? And I feel like if they updated it, it could be funny.
Can we talk about a little bit too? I have a little mini game.
Okay.
Because I did my own research. I didn't find this on the internet.
Yeah, your own research.
How many times they said dude? 96.
How many times did they say dude? I have a tally.
96.
Jace, did you actually count it?
Jace, did you count too?
You sound very confident in your answer.
Well, it differs. And I think there's going to be an issue versus, because there was a count, which could be 93. You could go to the literature, you could find the script, but obviously actors are given leniency in their performance. So I don't think a script gets edited if an actor goes ad lib. So I want to know what your tally is, Ryan.
Okay.
My tally was 63.
Wow.
You motherfuckers counted it? Jesus Christ. Jace, are you getting your number from
I
the
had
source?
Julie to help.
That's probably a more accurate answer. See, so I thought I was in the 90s, and
just dude?
The transcript for dude from the script has it or in that in the 90s as well.
Really?
Yeah.
So we both did this bit?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I feel like half of those are in the tattoo scene.
The interesting part about this is, in searching through online, nobody has asked this fucking question. Well, obviously, like, the internet is is
huge,
newer. I'm gonna say newer than this movie, but I expected discourse and I expected a Reddit thread, not a single Reddit thread about how many times to say dude in the movie.
Interesting.
There's one YouTube video that I ran out of time, was going to listen to, that says every time dude is said in the movie, and then it's all cut just to the dudes, and then they do word art over the video. It's like dude.
So another thing, how many times did they say the title of this movie in the beginning when they lost the car? I know that happens again at the end of the movie, and throughout the movie they say it, but at the beginning when they're standing in the street, how many times do you think they said it?
Well, first of all, I have the timestamp, 7 minutes, 8 seconds. They say the name of the movie, but I'm going to guess they said the actual line. I'm going to guess about 18 times.
In that scene, in the
first
first
scene?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I only counted that one first scene because later I was too busy on the dude count.
I'm going to say 12. It was a lot. It kind of seemed like a lot.
Man, 12 feels like a good number, 6 apiece. Maybe 15.
So I counted 7.
Oh, wow.
Because I think you guys are thinking of how many times I said dude in that scene. Dude, where's my car?
Would
sentence.
Dude, where's your car count? Did they say that?
I think I counted dude, where's your car, but
that doesn't count.
But that's would have ended up being more than dude. So yeah, surprisingly few, but 7 is still awesome. In a row.
Pretty good.
In the core, they weren't the core.
Dude, where's your core?
Yeah.
Dude, where's my core? Stupid.
Okay, I've got this up right now. So we'll go to the twins' house. We'll give them their anniversary gifts, and then we'll apologize for trashing their house, and then we'll get our special treats. Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude? Dude, where's your car? Where's my car? Where's your car, dude? Dude, where's my car? Where's your car, dude? 6. And then a little bit of question. Dude, where's your car? 7. Dude, where's your car? 8.
All in one scene.
All in one scene before they start saying shibby, which
were they trying to make shibby happen?
They're trying to make happen. But yeah, so you got 8. Okay,
that's what
so
this.
So I must have been counting. Dude, where's your car?
Okay, thank you, Jace. Now we got it. We got the official count. Dude, where's my car? Count. About shibby. That wasn't a thing, right? Was that from this movie? I need the shibby density needed to be a little higher to make it a thing.
Right.
I feel
and also I didn't know what they were saying. I thought they were saying shimmy until the end, and the car's license plate says shibby. So It definitely, they wanted to make some slang, but it wasn't
Yeah.
ever very clear what they meant by it.
I feel like they were trying to make it catch on. And then there was like a good 30-minute stretch where they stopped saying shibby and then they remembered again and they said it more at the end. And I was like, guys, you can't just start up the shibby again. Like, you got to keep using it. It's got to be like, excellent from Bill and Ted or something. I'm like Googling right now the like origin of shibby. And
If you're trying to
I think
make shibby work, you got to use it more than 12 times. And
yeah.
my shibby count through this, probably, this is from Scriptorama.
What's the shibby count?
It's the website with the transcribed script.
What's the shibby count, Jace? If you got it, the
12.
official count?
12.
12 times. That's
12
not enough
shibbies.
to make it happen. Well, can we get into the conclusion of this movie? Because the plot kind of
We didn't even
branches
mention the
out.
plot.
Yeah, it there's a continuum transponder,
Transfunctioner.
transfunctioner. Thank you. And that alien cult.
So
And there's yeah.
the funny part about this movie is that they had an epic adventure the night before it took place, and they have to retrace their steps to find their car and also save the universe. So I thought that was a really cool twist that I didn't remember at all when I originally rewatched this movie. The way that they introduced the different factions. I always like movies with factions,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there's like 5 different factions who are fighting over the continuum transfunctioner, which is apparently going to save the universe. And who do you believe? Which ones are the good guys? Who's working with who is always kind of funny, especially mixed in with who are these stoners going to trust and who can give them simple enough instructions so that they actually complete them.
Sultan.
Ryan, you like factions because factions are one step away from history, and history is dadcore. And
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
no.
Dadcore,
you love
Ryan.
dadcore, so
You
it's
like-
a symptom.
You like learning about factions, man. It's okay. It's okay. And this movie, unfortunately, is now dadcore because the people who are these guys' age are now in their 40s.
Yeah, there we go. That's a retort.
Okay, that is a question I have. We don't really get. I feel like it's very clear that they didn't want to like maybe portray the use of alcohol in this movie. It feels like it was skipped over because I don't have a sense of what age these people actually are. They talk about being with girlfriends for a year and still not having had sex with them. So like it kind of gives off a sense of maybe being in high school, but at the same time, they're not drinking alcohol in it, but they can get into a strip club. But
Yeah. I was similarly confused. My response is that they were losers, right?
Yeah.
And that they were dead end job. They're just delivering pizza, and they're the worst pizza delivery men ever. Not to say like, because there's a guy who runs like a successful pizza joint, and he's like doing well, and they're what's keeping him back. And it's stuff like that. So I think they just approach everything the same way. They're kind of childlike. They're preserved at the same age they were when they discovered weed.
Yeah.
okay, I like
when
that.
they were like 5. Like,
Because the confusing part to, I guess, the interaction, like you said, everyone goes all in on this, but like their interaction with the jock group is like, what age are those jocks?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like-
and then they're like, yeah, like, oh, that's that lady we liked in high school, or like whatever.
Yeah, they act like the bullies in a Power Ranger show. Like they're
Yeah.
acting like really bizarre. And even the twins character, like it seems like everyone, I use this a lot, but like it seems like everyone got hit in the head with a brick at one point, and like they're talking super strange, and they're like, I know where they are. They're wearing army helmets, eating pudding and doing thumb wars.
that joke, that was one of the ones that got me.
And I was like, it made me laugh, but I'm also like, how dumb are these guys? Like, this is so dumb that I'm like, are they recovering from a serious brain injury?
Can we go on to the meters?
Yeah, let's get into the meters. Ryan,
Because,
I mean, it's,
well, we have to have a discussion.
yes.
What's on the meter?
Our
For
shinometers.
so if you haven't listened before, maybe we should re-explain. The idea is that we're going to have 2 different ways of measuring this movie. One, the Seannometer, is we're going to measure how much of this movie was representative of Sean's work. Or at
How
least,
shibby was it?
Yeah, how shibby. Shibbyometer. On the other hand, we're going to rate it as a movie itself. So the 2 scales are not, they're not going to interact with each other, really. But we need to have a discussion of, in order to determine how much of a representative Seann William Scott movie this is, what kind of movies does he make? What's has to be in each movie. What are you going to give him points on?
Exactly.
I think I'm going to give him a point if he's not the main character.
If he's not, that's going to add a point. Like, you think
Yeah.
Seann William Scott's movies he's supporting.
Right. The quantity of Seann
That
has
would be
to
confusing
be in a happy medium.
That'd be confusing if we literally choose a movie where he is first build. It's kind of...
And it's going to be a 9. I'm sorry. He's first build. It's not a Seann movie.
No, that's kind of my argument.
Okay. So Seann movies, he's a supporting role, but he's like maybe a prominent character.
Yes.
That kind of supports the straight man in the story, the
Right.
main character. I can see that argument.
Like,
I
for
think
instance, it wasn't his car.
it wasn't his car. Was he the number 2 in this movie?
Absolutely.
think so.
Absolutely. He's in
feel
every
like they
scene.
I feel like they were even for me.
Yeah, I don't think he's a number 2.
I thought you meant them as opposed to being number 3.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like they were both in even standing, like him and Ashton. Like,
Well, let's look at the cover.
Oh, I guess Ashton's standing front and center. And I know Ashton is a bigger star at this point, too, but I really feel like they had all of their scenes together, and they had probably equal
Ashton's
speaking time.
build first. Ashton's saying, "Dude, where's my car?" on the cover.
Well, it's
his
his
name
car.
is first on the title line.
His name starts with an A. It's just alphabetical at that point.
No,
I
that's
think
not
it is.
how it
I think that's
works.
what it was.
That's not how it
okay.
works.
All right, fine.
There's
Fine,
no
he
shame
maybe-
in it. That's literally what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
it's part of one of his movies.
So Seann is like the bass player in a band. He makes it happen. He makes the movie kind of sing overall, but maybe he's not the person at the front.
Right. He's kind of the catalyst.
Yeah, but he's an essential cog in the wheel of the machine. I think part of my Seann meter is like how manic he is and how quotable he is. Because I think he's usually pretty quotable in movies. Like, he'll say a line like in a very big way, and he has this crazy Seann face, and I feel like that is very Seann William Scott. Anything else? Anything else we could think of about his personality?
I think he has to be like good looking. He has to be like, like that's his whole idea. It's like everybody else he's hanging out with, isn't very good, isn't suave or smooth.
Okay, I think we got something to build off of for our Seannometers. And also how shibby he was, I think, as well.
So I'll start with my Seannometer. I think this is high. This is this is classic Seann, obviously, but also it's probably, if not his most famous, maybe his second or third most famous. I think maybe Role Models and American Pie, obviously. So I think I'm dancing around the 8 or 9 territory. If we talk about quantity, he's in every single scene. I don't think he gets knocked down at all. This is kind of like, we just had a discussion. How 1A, 1B can you get before it's actually, 1 and 2? Mm-hmm. And quality, though, I don't think he did anything wrong. Everybody was making the mistakes that he made. It's just that's the whole idea of the movie. So I don't think I'm going to hold that against him either. However, he wasn't as cool as he normally is. He's usually not a loser. And the stoners in this movie were portrayed as losers. So I think I'm going to have to go with an 8. He could outshine this moment, but I think this is a really solid showing. It's a really representative of what is going to make this season go.
Okay, an 8. So maybe I'll go next then?
Yeah.
Okay. An 8. I mean, Ryan, I agree that this is going to be pretty high. I think this is a pretty good showing of our boy Seann with 2 N's. He's one of the leads, and he has a lot of fun moments. And with Ashton, I think it really shows his personality. The role is like really fucking bizarre. The writing is really weird. I don't know if they told him to overact like that, but I think it's a symptom of the movie. It ain't Seann's fault, okay? I think he's very wet in this role. You get a lot of his energy in here. And if you like the actor, I think you're going to really like this movie. And also, I think this is the most shibby he is in any of his movies. So that's also going to be extremely high. I'm going to give it a 9. I'm going to take it off just a little bit because I think there are some better showings. I think I might leave the 10 for Goon. We'll see. But he's kind of off to the side here, and I agree with Ryan in that he's like a stoner weirdo in this movie, and I feel like that's not normally his role, even though I like him in this role. So, a 9.
I'm concerned about the set in stone nature and the backpedaling that I've done every time we get to the end of a season.
Yeah.
I.e. giving the core like a 5 because we're like, something's got to be above it, something's got to be below it.
Right.
And then it being like, it was like, we should have probably given that an 8 or a 9. For Seann in this movie, my gut is telling me that until we see something, that challenges my perception of him in this, because I think this is like the 3rd or 4th movie he was ever in, and it goes on
Yeah.
He goes on to be this kind of character. Like, I feel like this character could have turned into Country Mac in the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode. You know, they have the same vibe. So I don't want to go too high just in case, but I don't want to go too low. So I feel like an 8 is good. And personally, when I think about his acting in this, I think his like deadpan Animal Planet or Discovery Channel, when he delivered the line, sense memory simulated perception altered conscious memory retrieval, like, I was like, this is what I want from this is what I want from Seann. I want those type of quotes in the exact wrong place in a movie, you know, or some shit like that. So 8.
He delivered those quotes too in just the right amount to where it hits the hardest. And I feel like his delivery was just perfect. Yeah. All right, Ryan, I mean, you got the movie meter now.
This is the harder question. Let's be real clear, because I could out myself as an absolute moron if I rate this high. Think about where we started. We started like watching for this podcast. We started really critically evaluating movies, talking about shots and framing and all this stuff and pacing and stuff. Now we're watching Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah.
That's the tricky part, is because I have to kind of shift a little bit more towards subjective. And when I want to really give it an objective score, objectively, it's impossible to score this thing because it's kind of purposefully bad. So it's not like The Thing's killing defense either, where like when you're watching the movie as terrible as one of the most worst movies ever made, they're like, oh, but it's supposed to be bad. And the retort is, well, can you make anything good on purpose? Like, it's not a defense if you can't make anything good. And I don't know. I feel like they could have. And it was a choice to make it bad. So I think I'm in the range around 7. I think 7's very fair. It's giving it a lot more points than it maybe truly deserves. But it's also noting that I laughed a lot. I laughed about 10 times. You guys, do you remember the line when Seann William Scott says, is that a barn?
It's not red, dude.
No. Well, then it's not a barn. Like, that is so funny. And then when they're doing the thing about beating the guy over the head with the fire extinguisher, and Seann is just like, not in it. Like, those jokes are so funny. The fact that there was like intro credits and that during the intro credits it said based on real events.
Yeah.
Like, you just knew the tone it was coming with. And it's not pretending to be anything it's not. In fact, like, it's way better than what it's pretending to be. The whole continuum transfunction stuff is hilarious. I like the factions angle. I'm afraid I'm going to have to give this movie a 7. And,
oh boy, Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I mean, there was a literal snakes in a can joke in this movie. And it got the characters and it got us. Like, I laughed during that scene. Julie really laughed during that scene. And also when they're in the ostriches and Ashton punches Seann in the face, she cracked up. That was her favorite joke in the movie. And I was like, Julie, that's not even
You're outing Julie right now.
It's not really even a joke.
She can't defend herself.
Yeah, she's got no way until she comes on for a bonus episode again.
A 7. Yeah, right. I mean, I did find a lot of this movie funny. I think I'm in a unique position to where, like, I've never been exposed to this movie, but grew up in an era where this is from. So I remember this type of humor. I remember laughing at stuff that was in this movie or like would be in this movie. It had a lot of charming moments between Ashton and Seann, but I think these were overshadowed for me by a lot of dated jokes and some unfunny sexual gags for me. Also, the acting was fucking atrocious. Like, it was distractingly bad. I don't know if it was on purpose, but the interplay between the two leads are like by far the brightest points here. Like I said, there was a lot of gags that really worked, but a lot of gags that really didn't, and not even because they were like problematic, but just the gag density was so high, but a lot of them just really didn't hit. I think this movie really struggled with kind of striking the balance between, like, you know, goofy innocence of a Nickelodeon movie and maybe like raunchy shock comedy of the 2000s. I feel like it didn't quite nail the balance between those two, which kind of made me scratch my head a lot. You know, overall, this was like kind of a bumpy ride for me with a few smiles and laughs, but like I can't say I'd recommend it to someone or would ever watch it again. You know, like much like other like classic comedies for me, I think it's a time capsule. It's a relic of the past. You know, maybe there's some stuff in there that like is still funny and timeless, but I can't excuse. I can't just excuse huge portions of this movie. Like I can't excuse like a third of it, because that's part of the movie. That's part of the makeup and it's part of the writer's room. I think I'm gonna have to give it a light 2. That kind of correlates to honestly my enjoyment. Like I talk about how much I laughed in this movie, but there was a lot of parts where I wasn't laughing. So, yeah, that's gonna be a 2 for me. And it's not Sean's fault. I just want to. It's not because of Seann. Seann, listen, you didn't make all this movie. All right, you did a good job.
So I liked the two-man. I liked the two-man gag where a lot of the movie and a lot of the jokes were structured around something happening to both of the guys together at the same time. I thought that was really funny. The red white, obviously they're together. The opposing jumpsuits. The snake can had a red and a blue snake coming out of it, and otherwise, I didn't really enjoy the first half. This is another movie that I had to split I played Frisbee for 8 hours yesterday and then drove home an hour and a half from Bellingham and then tried to watch the movie. And then was like, I'm too tired. I gotta go sleep. And then I re-picked it up today. I still think it was fair because I wasn't like, God, this movie sucks last night or anything. But it wasn't the vibe check is bad. It's a movie. There were some getting beat over the head with gags over and over and over and over again, especially like what you said. So a lot of them are dated. Some of them hit really hard. I think them making out in the car, like you could see where it was going and the payoff was good. The Disney Channel / the Animal Planet payoffs were good. The ostrich busting its head through the roof was completely unexpected for me. That was like a good physical gag. I think most of the gags that I liked were like the physical stuff. One of the things that relates back to what we were talking about earlier, I wasn't expecting a movie to be so close from 2000s to like potentially having a positive use of pronouns. But halfway through the joke, you realize that it's not at all. Where they're like, oh, hey, guys, to the group of 5 women. And it's like, we're not guys. And you're like, oh? And they're like, we're hot chicks. And I was like, oh. And then they did it again and again. And then they morphed into a giant woman. And then there was a father-son joke where they were looking at a bird skirt at her butt. And it was weird. So I'm going to give the movie a 4. It's a movie. It probably would have had me like laughing my balls off at like 16, 20. Post-pandemic, this is a...
Yeah, I want to be real. Like, I would have loved this movie as a teenager. Like, I would have went ape shit for it. Yeah, so there we have it. Yeah.
It's very dependent on your mood. Like, I don't know what circumstances you watched it in Denali, but like, I was sitting on my couch, couple deep, and completely relaxed on a Friday night watching this movie. This was all that was on my itinerary. I started at like 8 o'clock, so not super late. I wasn't super tired. And I had someone on the couch next to me who was in the same mood, laughing at the same jokes, some of the different jokes. But like, I think this movie is a very good litmus test for, your environment and different people having different, even like experiences, like you, Denali, with a lot of the things that you actually do experience. Me as a straight white man, I don't have a lot of, troubles in my life, but I think it is kind of interesting how these older movies can kind of do that to you.
Yeah, and like, I wasn't in a particularly bad mood. I think I was receptive. I think it's just the content of the movie. I just didn't like. I wanted to really like this movie, and like we were talking about, there was a lot that I really did. But for me, there's stuff that I struggle to overlook. If it was just like one thing, like in Bill and Ted, they had like one bad gag. That's whatever. Like I can toss that aside. But when it's just makes up so much of the percentage of the movie, it's like I'm giving it too much of a benefit of doubt by being like, well, we can just ignore that. For me,
this comment is making me wonder, one, because I didn't say earlier that fucking the Chinese food takeout joke. Dear God, that lasted too long. It was so bad. But what they mentioned, I mean, there had to have been. Americans have an obsession with Chinese food, and I think it was peaking in the 2000s.
Yeah.
No, and I think I have to imagine that at some point, that's why it's in here, because I'm just thinking about how many times, like specifically, no other type of food I went to a Chinese food place as a kid, and
Well,
my
right.
God.
And think about, like, this was, in my life at least, there was American food, there was Mexican food,
Right.
and there was Chinese food. Those are the three types of food you have. And like now, like I had Thai food for dinner. And like my parents have never had Thai food. and stuff like that. And that's, I think, a symptom of the early 2000s, at least, especially where we grew up, Jace. I totally agree. It was just Chinese food.
We had 2 Chinese places, I think, in
Yeah.
our town. And like, what was it? Like, it was Peking?
Yep.
Peking Garden.
Which fucking slapped. That was a great Chinese
dude.
place. I hope it's still there. It's
We
great.
probably, like, my mom, my family, like, whenever anyone would come over, we'd be like, hey, Mom, are you going to stop and get Chinese food?
Yes.
And she'd come back with, like, well, I mean, 120 of $2013 worth
Right.
of Chinese food, like 6 giant ass
Dude.
containers of food.
Yeah, Jace, you guys are the ones who turned me onto that restaurant too.
Yeah, like we had my mom and I had to drive an hour and a half out of town to even go to like the one Korean restaurant, and now it's like you got Korean barbecue on every fucking
Everywhere.
street corner nowadays. So I think it was a novelty thing where it's like, oh, we're getting Chinese food now,
Yeah.
and this is what everybody in China eats,
Right.
uniformly.
Not true at all.
And it's like, oh, we're white people going here, and this is what your experience is
Yeah.
going to be. Isn't that funny? But
They're doing kind of
mean-
an otherism joke anyways. It's just Chinese food ended up being the punching bag.
Yeah. I think it's interesting there outside of, the review of this movie to think too that as far back as time has been a thing, there's this kind of divide between rural and city. And like, I mean, Seattle in 2000, probably shit ton of diversity, a lot of different types of restaurants. But Wasilla, Alaska, where we're at, it's like, yeah, Chinese food.
well, that was our first Seann William Scott movie from the year 2000, plunging almost a quarter century back.
Woof. You guys don't say that.
From a storied career. But who has the next movie selection? Is it Jace for this week?
We can
Was it me?
Rosham. It
How
would
do
be
we-
you. I don't give a shit. Yeah, pick a movie. Pick a movie.
Okay, I'll pick a movie. I'm picking the next movie. The executive privilege has been given to me. Man, I'm caught between 2 movies right now, and I'm not sure which one to do. I'm leaning towards either Final Destination or Evolution.
I love Evolution so much.
I like Evolution. Don't know how much he's in Final Destination.
I don't think
so
he's in Foundation all that much. I think
Yeah.
he doesn't meet his demise.
I would
But
prefer.
I prefer to watch Evolution so much.
My kind of reservation is generally I would prefer like the first 4 to give us
To
the
be
flavor.
stacked with Seann.
And then, so when we do see him in movies, it's like we're getting a lot of the flavor, We're like,
Okay.
oh, no, no, no,
I
no,
can-
no, no.
I can give a little more flavor here. I think I'll pick Evolution then because I've never seen it, but I do have a weird moment with it because I think I was 10 years old in a Blockbuster and I was like pointing at it in front of my mom. I was like, oh, well, I think I'm going to rent this movie. And then she said, and I quote, don't rent that movie. That movie's fucking stupid.
Yes, exactly.
Which I thought was, that's like still burned in my memory. I thought that was so funny.
Like I rented this movie from Blockbuster and it was good. It was a favorite of mine as a kid, so I'm excited. I like Final Destination. I don't know if I've ever seen the original. I'm kind of hoping we can watch it.
I do want to see Final Destination as well.
Definitely.
I feel like
It'll definitely
a
hit the list.
watch through of that series would be really fun too. I also think it's an OCD person's fucking nightmare, and that's also going to be cool. So if we're cool with it, we're going to see Evolution. I've seen the TV show on the WB Saturday mornings.
What?
Yeah, remember the Evolution TV show? I think it was
Dude,
one season.
I don't know. I'm not making any representations about how well certain jokes age in this movie because I don't remember if any of them are problematic.
Okay.
But this movie is, I unironically enjoy this movie.
I recall liking this, and I think Ryan or Michael were the ones who showed it to me.
Okay.
So-
Well, my mom did not, and we'll have her on next week as a guest.
My boy
And,
Fox Mulder.
that she can review this movie. If you guys have any opinions, any thoughts about this season, about Seann William Scott,
Save him for
drop us-
yourself. Oh,
Save them for yourself. Do not contact us. But send us a DM about anything else. Engage with us. Check out our YouTube channel. I've been starting to post our episodes again. If you want to see our faces as we review this, some people just like having it on their computer screen, and we will allow this.
Should we give some sage advice?
We can do sage advice.
Okay. Dude,
You
really
put
our
minds
vibe
in.
overdrive.
nice.
That sounds like the title of like of a song that would be in this movie.
Yeah.
Dude, you really put our mind's vibe into overdrive.
Dang,
bad.
minds vibe and overdrive sounds like a schlapper.
Mind's vibe.
I'm writing that down for a
Yeah,
lyric
yeah,
yeah.
lyric sheet. Don't take it.